appreciate his hard work as the president of New College. We also appreciate our chancellor of the state university system here in Florida, Ray Rodriguez, who's also here with us today. And we've got a number of folks that are also going to be speaking about some of the issues that we're going to be able to sign into law today. But this is a really, really exciting day and a really significant package of really good legislation related to higher education, and not just some of the things we've seen here at New College, but also things like workforce education, which has been a huge, huge emphasis for our administration. We are joined by one of the trustees here at New College, Christopher Rufo, who's a senior fellow and director of the initiative on CRT at the Manhattan Institute. We also have Ivan Castro, pastor and father from Oviedo, Florida. We also have a number of members of our legislature that are with us. Senator Keith Perry is here. We have Representatives Mello, Roach, McFarland, as well as House Majority Leader Michael Grant. So I want to welcome them, and I want to thank them for all their wonderful work in this legislative session. We're still signing bills. I mean, I feel like I've been doing this for a long time now, but it's a good problem to have because there's a lot of things that have really made a difference, and I think everything we promised we've done, we've delivered on all those promises and even exceeded the promises, and that's the way you want to do it. So thank you for what you've done. Now, Florida has been ranked #1 in higher education for many years now. You don't always hear that in some of the popular media, but that's just a reality. We are #1 unequivocally of all 50 states for lowest tuition and fees, which is really important because higher education has gone up way too much across the country, particularly private universities. You shouldn't have to mortgage your entire life's future just to be able to obtain higher education, and so we've put our money where our mouth is on that. We're also #2 for 2-year graduation rate and #4 for 4-year graduation rate. We believe in providing a high-quality education, but at an affordable price, and we want degrees and pathways to lead to students being able to do well in their future endeavors. We have not had any tuition increases in the state of Florida for 10 years, and that's the lowest tuition in the country. Florida was recently ranked #1 for attracting and developing talent. Part of that is workforce education. Part of that is we've had more economic opportunities in Florida than in many places in the country, particularly since COVID-19. And we've really embraced the idea that we want our higher education system to reflect the best interests of the state of Florida. It's our view that when the taxpayers are funding these institutions, that we as Floridians and we as taxpayers have every right to insist that they are following a mission that is consistent with the best interests of our people in our state. You don't just get to take taxpayer dollars and do whatever the heck you want to do and think that that's somehow okay. So what we've done last year, probably more than anyone's done in a long time, and we're going to exceed it here today, but last year, Senate Bill 744 provided really significant reforms for higher education. First, the bill dismantled the monopoly accreditation agencies had on the entire higher education system. We are going to be doing different accrediting bodies. We're also working with other states to create some new accrediting bodies. People sometimes wonder, why is the universities doing this, doing that? Seems like they're pursuing more of an agenda than actually trying to just focus on academics, and sometimes that's just a deliberate choice, but sometimes those are choices that are being conditioned based on the accrediting bodies. They're telling you you have to do this, or somehow you lose your accreditation, even though it has very little to do with the traditional academic mission. And so we think that that monopoly is something that's outdated, and we think injecting competition into the accreditation regime is absolutely essential. The bill last year also brought accountability for tenured faculty. We now have all tenured professors must undergo review every 5 years and can be let go for poor performance. And so I think that corrects some of the incentives. Once you have the tenure, thinking you have a job for life. Well, no, I think you got to continue to perform. And I think if you talk to people that have been involved in higher education, they will tell you all the kind of the most significant dead weight expense in a university is unproductive tenured faculty. And so Florida has an opportunity to address that. And then we also increase the ability to transition from a state college to a state university. We're proud of our state colleges. We think they're fulfilling an important mission, and we want people to be able to, if they so choose, use that as a springboard into our state university system. So that was a really big deal. That was leading the country in a variety of ways, but we wanted to do more, and so that's what we're here today to talk about and here to bring to fruition. So the first bill that I'll be signing is SB 266, and what this does is reorient our universities back to their traditional mission, and part of that traditional mission is to treat people as individuals, not to try to divvy them up based on any type of superficial characteristics. We're going to elevate merit and achievement above identification with certain groups, and in order to do that, we had to look at this new concept, relatively new concept, called diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I didn't know much. I mean, this is something relatively recent. I mean, Chris Ruvo can talk about when this really started to percolate. I think it had probably been there a few years ago, but then kind of the post-BLM rioting and the George Floyd summer of 2020, I think you saw it really take off. And on its face, I mean, when I see diversity, I think different viewpoints. Have a robust academic discussion in a university. Isn't that what they're for? In reality, what this concept of DEI has been is to attempt to impose orthodoxy on the university, and not even necessarily in the classroom, but through the administrative apparatus of the university itself, and that manifests itself in a number of different ways, but this has basically been used as a veneer to impose an ideological agenda, and that is wrong. And in fact, if you look at the way this has actually been implemented across the country, DEI is better viewed as standing for discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, and that has no place in our public institutions. And so this bill says the whole experiment with DEI is coming to an end in the state of Florida. We are eliminating the DEI programs. We are going to treat people as individuals. We're not going to treat people as members of groups. And it's also wrong how this has been implemented. It has been discriminatory, but it's also the fact that the more emphasis you place on something like a DEI, the less time emphasis you do, because of opportunity costs, on recruiting great teachers, on promoting things like STEM courses or other great courses that the students could really learn about from taking. So I think it's been a distraction from the core mission of the university, and I think this is a needed corrective. We're also making a determination in this bill to say, okay, you have tax dollars, even though we put a lot of funding into New College in this current year, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but I mean, we've really shown a commitment to higher education with funding, and that's important, but at the end of the day, you can't be all things to all people. You got to make decisions about what do you want to do. Do you want a medical school somewhere, or do you want something else? And so what this bill is saying is, some of these niche subjects like critical race theory, other types of DEI-infused courses and majors, Florida's getting out of that game. If you want to do things like gender ideology, go to Berkeley, go to some of these other places. That's fine. It's fine. And there's nothing, if that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that per se. But for us, with our tax dollars, we want to focus on the classical mission of what a university is supposed to be. We don't want to be diverted into a lot of these niche subjects that are heavily politicized. We want to focus on the basics. And I think what you've seen as these types of majors and courses, first of all, how employable are you with some of these majors? I mean, really, it's not a good academic choice in terms of being able to be employable. That's one of the reasons I think this whole student loan thing, universities should be on the hook for the student loans. If that were the case, they would make sure that their curriculum was really fit to be productive for the students when they graduated. They wouldn't have the luxury of doing a lot of this stuff if they were on the hook. Instead, they're perfectly happy for someone to go to school for 5 or 6 years, take out huge amounts of loans, get a degree that's not worth the paper it's printed on. The university doesn't suffer. In fact, the university has benefited from that because they've gotten more tuition money. So we need to change those incentives. But as it stands now, we are going to have traditional education. We want courses and majors that have high return on investment. And we think that that's something that's very, very important. What the bill also does is it does not allow accreditation agencies to require our Florida institutions to break state law. And so what happens is these accreditors will say, no, you must have DEI as part of your operating ethos in order to earn accreditation. That's ridiculous. Who elected these people to make such a determination? That is them sitting in a perch, unaccountable to anybody else, trying to impose that on the university system without any ability for us to have a check and balance. And so state law is now just saying, you got to follow the law. Creditor tells you to break the law, you cannot do that. And I think that that's really, really important to ensure that our universities are able to make sound decisions and not be bullied into doing things by some of these ideologically charged accreditation agencies. The bill will also re-empower our university presidents to be the core decision maker at their institutions by prohibiting personnel actions from being appealed beyond the university president. And really, you have a situation, who ultimately runs the university? Is it kind of a cabal of faculty, or is it the president and the board of trustees? We believe that it should be the president and the board of trustees because they're more accountable to the people of Florida, who they're using our tax dollars, and we think that it's easier to be able to make changes if they're failing at their mission. And so presidents can now make direct hires. They don't have to delegate down to faculty committees on these decisions. And so what does that mean practically? Well, what it means is and we've put a huge amount of money into faculty recruitment. So you could have Richard Corcoran here at New College. He could go to like George Mason or MIT and meet with the professors who were interested in coming here, and he can recruit them. He can provide them an offer for compensation. Board of Trustees can ratify that, and you're going to be able to have a potential to have a pipeline of people that are going to want to come here. I can tell you when the new college appointments were done, when we did those in January and they reoriented the mission away from the whole DEI CRT framework, there's a lot of interest in faculty around the country, and not like conservative faculty across the board, because I think there's a recognition that this whole framework has been very intellectually oppressive. People feel like they're walking on eggshells, that they say the wrong thing, they can be blackballed. That's not a healthy environment. They don't believe that they have the freedom to speak their minds on a lot of these university campuses. And so they see a college like New College or a system like Florida going in the other direction where we're welcoming that debate. There's a lot of people that are going to be interested in that. So I'm excited about the prospects of our university presidents recruiting great talent to come to our universities here in the state of Florida. And this bill also doubles down on our commitment to civics education, particularly in higher education. So we're doing $30 million to the Hamilton Center for Classical Civic Education at the University of Florida. They've identified one of the classic buildings that's going to be able to be kind of retrofitted to have classrooms and dorms and all these great things. And that's going to be a place where you're going to have people like the president of the University of Florida, Ben Sass. He'll be able to recruit faculty directly to Hamilton Center. Eventually, we may even make that a separate college at the University of Florida, but that's going to be a place where all these subjects, which were just so essential for most of our history, and certainly the American founders would have said you have to have grounding in all this stuff, that is going to be front and center at a place like the Hamilton Institute. So that's a great shot in the arm for them. The bill also invests $8 million to reinvigorate the Florida Institute of Politics at FSU, and they're going to rename it Florida Institute of Governance and Civics, and then it gives another $5 million to expand the Adam Smith Center for Study of Economic Freedom at Florida International University. The budget, as I mentioned, the legislature is giving money for faculty recruitment. That's $100 million in this year's budget just to recruit faculty to our institutions, and some of it will go, obviously, new colleges getting a big chunk of that, University of Florida, Florida State, FIU, all these, but just think how empowering that's going to be able to do. Some of these professors that do a really good job, they don't get paid a lot in some of these places, and so I think we're willing to pay for performance. And if you're going to make a difference in our students' academic journeys, then that's something that we think deserves compensation. So people are going to have some options now that's going to be really, really positive. So that's a huge, huge bill to be able to do. And Richard will mention, total amount this year for New College, in addition to what they've gotten in the past, we did $35 million addition for faculty hiring and also for them to do other improvements at the university. I don't think they've ever gotten that infusion in the history of the college. So we are committed to the mission here. I would love for this to be, and I think it will be, the top classical liberal arts college in America. Certainly to be the top state liberal arts college in America. And if you look at in-state tuition in Florida, to be able to come here versus going someplace out of state, I mean, for a Florida resident, this is a no-brainer. But then you look at some of the parents out of state, what is it, $16,000 for out-of-state tuition, $16,000, $17,000 for out-of-state tuition. There's a lot of states, their in-state tuition is more than that. I think Michigan, I think Virginia, I think some of those. So what a great opportunity to get a high-quality yet affordable education, even for people out of state. So I think you're going to see a lot of interest in the application process over the next few years. So big deal on that bill. But we're also doing House Bill 931. That prohibits public institutions of higher education from requiring students, faculty, or staff to take what are effectively political loyalty oaths. They will call them diversity statements, but it's really requiring you to sign up to support an ideological agenda that you may not be supportive of. And what we've seen across the country, schools requiring professors to commit to DEI and CRT theories before they are allowed to be hired at a university. And that is not going to fly in the state of Florida. We want people to be free thinkers. The way that's been applied is, in some instances in other parts of the country, a professor candidate who says their view is that everyone should be treated equally regardless of their skin color, that they would get marked down for saying that. I thought that that was what we were aspiring to. No, you have to take these other contorted views for them to find you acceptable. So that is wrong, and I think you've seen a lot of opposition to that, regardless of political persuasion. And so Florida, that is nixed here. Bill also establishes an Office of Public Policy events within each state university to organize events on campus that are representative of a wide range of viewpoints, thoughts, and ideas. We believe that a good education is going to expose you to a lot of different ideas. You should have your assumptions challenged about how you see certain issues. That's a healthy thing. I think some of the universities around the country where orthodoxy has taken hold, a lot of these students can go through 4 years, get a degree, and never have their assumptions challenged. And then they get into the real world, and sometimes it can be a rude awakening. So we think it's just better for education as a whole to be able to do that. We also think that Florida is welcoming opposing viewpoints, and that's something that on an institutional level we must do, but it's also something that students should be willing to accept. What you saw at places like Stanford Law School, where they're trying to silence a federal judge that they disagree with, where they had San Francisco State University, where you have this great swimmer, Riley Gaines, being treated absolutely horribly because she's standing up for the integrity of women's sports, that is wrong. It also really, I think, shows a cancer that's developed in some of these institutions amongst the student body. The idea that if there's a viewpoint you disagree with, that the appropriate recourse is to try to drown them out by yelling or screaming or trying to take over the event. That is antithetical to what a free society is all about. And I think if there's behavior like you saw at Stanford or like you saw at San Francisco State University by students in Florida universities, they should be expelled from the university. Finally, we're signing Senate Bill 240. This expands access to workforce education programs as well as career and technical education programs in middle school and high school. When I became governor, I said we were in the bottom half of workforce education nationally. I said our goal by 2030 is to be #1. We are well on that way to achieving that because we've put a lot of emphasis on putting our money where our mouth is, making sure there's programs, but also just expressing the truth that a 4-year brick and ivy university is one way you can be successful, but it is not the only way, and for many people, it's not the best way. And when I was growing up, they said, unless you get that college degree, you have no chance to be successful in life. That is not true. There are a lot of different pathways where people can be very, very successful. Our view is not necessarily to push someone one way or another. We want them to be able to follow the path that they see fit. But what we don't want to do is act like if you're pursuing a technical pathway that somehow you're less worthy than somebody that's going to university. I mean, that's just factually not true. And in fact, I think if you look in Florida, young people that have gone into truck driving, welding, aircraft maintenance, all these different things that require important skills, they make really good money at an early age. Then you look at some of the other students who will go deep into debt, get a degree in things like zombie studies, then they end up in jobs they could have had at a high school. And so who made the better decision there? I don't think you look down on the person that's trying to do technical and career education. I think that that's something that should be lauded. Those are not only good pathways for individual opportunity and success, they're also critical components of our economy here in the state of Florida. I mean, especially when you have a growing state. You got things like electricians. You have all these things that are in really high demand. What I found is people will go in, they'll work as an electrician, and then they can start their own shop, and then they're entrepreneurs, and then they start making really, really good money, especially when you have more demand for services in our state. So I think it's important that we recognize that. We have recognized that we've put our money where our mouth is on this. We are in this bill requiring each middle and high school school district to ensure that every high school student has access to at least one work-based learning opportunity. We're also requiring school districts to ensure that each high school hosts a career fair during the school year, and it allows middle school students who want to continue their CTE education in high school to attend a high school that offers the program regardless of zip code. So if you happen to be here in Sarasota, maybe you got to go to Venice to do it, you will have a right to do it if Venice has a program that they're not offering here. What we found is a lot of the school districts have embraced the idea of workforce education. It's not just what's in the classroom, it's also how you link students to job opportunities. So we're supporting apprenticeships in high school where you can actually go and work at places in your community. And guess what? If you show up on time, if you show you're willing to learn, if you have a good attitude, 9 times out of 10, they are going to want to hire you when you get out of high school. So that'll be an option for you. And we have students that do that, have job options, and then they still end up deciding to go to college. That's fine. But at least you had all your bases covered. So this is really, really significant, and we want to continue to do that going forward. So I just want to thank everyone who's been a part of this. I mean, this is a really, really big day for higher education and for education writ large in the state of Florida. I saw some of the protesters out there. I was a little disappointed. I was hoping for more, but it's all good. It's all good. So before we sign the bills, we're going to hear from some of our speakers, and so we'll start with Ray Rodriguez, our University Chancellor.
Thank you, Governor. As Governor DeSantis mentioned, for the 7th year in a row, U.S. News & World Report has ranked Florida as the #1 state for higher education. Undergraduate tuition in Florida is now the lowest in the entire country. 75% of our resident undergraduate students have no student loans. Florida universities have received a significant investment in our higher education system from our legislature and our governor. That investment demands accountability, and accountability is what these bills that are going to be signed today provide. The biggest aspect I think we see in these bills is the dismantling of the DEI bureaucracy that has grown up on our campuses. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with the concepts of diversity or equity or inclusion. However, the programs that have been created and their applications have no connection with the common definition of those words. Let me just give you a couple of examples of programs that have initiated in DEI offices across the country and even in the state. As Governor DeSantis mentioned, we have DEI statements that serve as an ideological litmus test to determine whether you can be admitted to be hired at a university, be promoted at a university, and in some cases, receive tenure. A national study found 20% of all academic postings require a DEI statement with the application. These statements serve as a litmus test to weed out those who have diverse thought. Our universities are supposed to be a marketplace of ideas. You do not have a marketplace of ideas when you only have one political thought. You have a monoculture. Creating a monoculture is not diversity. In the name of equity, many DEI departments have developed bias-related incident reporting. These policies provide a mechanism where students may report perceived acts of bias or hate. The accusations may be anonymous. A court in Florida found that these incidents may include acts that are legal, unintentional, and may not rise to the level of a crime, may not rise to the level of a violation of state law, may not rise to a violation of university policy, and may not even be a violation of the student code of conduct. Yet, a student may still be accused, found guilty, and counseled on the restorative steps that they should take. A quasi-judicial proceeding that tramples our right to due process is not equity. And in the name of inclusion, DEI offices across this nation have been scheduling graduation ceremonies which are separated by race. Some have ceremonies for Black students, Hispanic students, Native American students, Asian students, Middle Eastern students. These separate ceremonies are divisive, and they segregate students by their identities instead of uniting them in their common accomplishment, earning a college degree. These ceremonies are called affinity graduation celebrations. In Florida, we recognize that segregating students by race is an affinity. It's called segregation. Many great men and women, like the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Harry and Harriet Moore, literally gave their lives in the civil rights struggle to end segregation. No individual paid for by the taxpayers on a higher education campus should be reconstructing segregation, no matter what they call it. Segregation is not inclusion. So as you can see, these programs initiated by these DEI offices do not promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. They don't reflect the values of the free state of Florida. Faculty across the country have stood up to these programs, and when they've stood up to them, they've been attacked, they've been labeled racist, and some of them have even been canceled. It takes courage to take on the DEI industrial complex. In Florida, we have America's governor, Ron DeSantis. Who has the courage to lead that fight. Thank you, Governor.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Richard Corcoran. I'm the interim president of New College. I have to own something right out the get-go. What you're hearing outside, that's all on me. I told staff last night, turn off the air conditioning in the dorms. If you listen carefully, they're saying, turn the air back on, turn the air back on. I apologize. Hey, I want to say, first and foremost, I want to talk about New College, because what's happening here is nothing shy of amazing, transformational, just unbelievably a gift. And to have the governor on campus, I was trying to check this morning, I don't think we've had a governor since Bob Graham spoke at a commencement address, have had a governor on our campus coming to help and support in the way that Governor DeSantis has. But I want to say a sincere thanks. We have members of the legislature, we have the governor. The governor mentioned we got $35 million more this legislative session. They gave us $15 million before the legislative session. That $50 million is more money that New College has ever received from the state as far back as we can see, which is at least 20 plus years combined. Just an amazing amount of money. And here's what it's leading to: an increase in student life. Whether it's dormitories or adding sports or beautification of the campus, amenities, restaurants, all of that. It's leading to what will be, and I'll say it publicly, record enrollment. We are on the verge of having the largest incoming class ever in the history of New College in just 90 days. It's the addition of world-class faculty, and in the next 3 weeks, you're going to hear some of these world-class faculties. Literally LeBron James of higher ed. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but... And the third thing is we've redone our curriculum too. We have a new core curriculum. That core curriculum, if you follow Steve Jobs, built the first $1 trillion market cap company, but he said that the reason they were so successful, the reason they beat Microsoft, the reason they beat all these other innovators was because they lived at the liberal arts intersection of liberal arts and technology. Our core curriculum is going to marry the virtue courses, those courses that everyone should be exposed to. What is my role in life? What is a good life? What is a just society? Those types of courses. And then marry it with the newest and the most innovative technology. Where are we on AI? Where are we on basic skills and data science? So when our kids graduate, they will go, whether they're a biologist, a physicist, a marine biologist, whatever it might be, and they go apply for a job, they're going to look at them in 2 seconds and say, these kids have a beautiful foundation in the virtue and a beautiful foundation in the technology. And in addition to that, they have a great degree in biology or whatever that might be. That's what's happening at New College. None of that happens without great leadership. Leadership is everything, and this state, whether it's in higher ed, whether it's in K-12, whether it's in environment, you name it, has been blessed with having the greatest governor in the history of this state, if not the nation. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. Thank you. And now, I want you to hear, part of that whole transformation was the governor saying we're going to pick new leaders. And we have a bunch of our trustees here today. One of them you're going to hear from, Christopher Rufo. And thanks to Christopher Rufo and his leadership and our trustees, we've eliminated DEI, as the governor talked about. We have also begun the process of getting a new accreditor. So all of those transformational changes that allow us to build, to your point, Governor, the #1 liberal arts college in the country. Chris?
I think we're louder in here than they are out there. All right. I'd just like to say I'm from the Seattle, Washington area. And to me, waking up in the morning and hearing protests is like turning on the coffee machine. And I would say, though, this is kind of kindergarten level protest. So if they want to learn something, they should come back with me. But in all seriousness, this is the most significant higher education reform in a half century. I'd like to tell you a story of why it's necessary and what it's going to do moving forward. In the late 1960s, the left-wing activists, whom these folks are kind of reinterpreting, maybe doing a reenactment of, they launched what they called the Long March to the Institutions. And the goal was to get entry into the public university system, the public school systems, and treat them as a slush fund for their private political interests. They captured institutions with their ideology. They showed contempt for the voters who were paying their salaries. And for many decades, unfortunately, conservatives did nothing. They were intimidated by this, for lack of a other explanation. And so the latest iteration of this political development was the explosion in 2020 of DEI programs. And as legislators were contemplating the bill to abolish them, I did a series of investigative reports of 5 Florida's public universities, to look into exactly what their DEI bureaucracies were doing. And through public records requests, I found the following. University of Florida, the flagship institution, had created more than 1,000 separate DEI initiatives. They denounced the United States as a system of, quote, white supremacy, and even encouraged white faculty to participate in something called Racists Anonymous, which I didn't know even existed. University of Central Florida released what they called an inclusive faculty hiring guide that said that merit in faculty hiring was, quote, a myth, and advocated for explicit racial discrimination and racial quotas, all in the interest of promoting left-wing political concepts. And finally, Florida International University turned its DEI program explicitly into a ground for left-wing activist recruiting, even training students for participating in violent BLM protests and teaching them how to handle tear gas and getting arrested by police. All funded by many of the people in this room with taxpayer dollars. This legislation that will be signed momentarily will immediately abolish all of these programs. Done. And more importantly, it will put the pursuit of knowledge and truth, not political activism, back to the center of higher education in Florida. And what you'll hear from the media, what you'll hear from maybe the protesters, is that somehow this is destroying democracy. Anyone heard that line of attack? But in fact, they have it exactly backwards. This is about restoring democracy. The basic premise of this legislation is that our public institutions should reflect the values of the public. It's that Florida's farmers and waitresses and truck drivers should not be subsidizing a pure permanent bureaucracy of left-wing activists who hate them and hate their values, but of course are happy to take their money. And that's why the governor decided to take action. That's why he fought for these once-in-a-generation reform along with legislators that will also help restore balance back to the universities. And unlike many other politicians, unfortunately, even in very red states, he had the courage to stand up to the special interest, to stand up to the DEI commissars that thought they were running the show, and to stand up to the activist media and fight on behalf of the average voter. And the ultimate question here is a political question that is very simple, is who represents the people in the state of Florida? The DEI bureaucrats who say that America is fundamentally evil, who segregate students by race, and who deny opportunities to individuals because of their ancestry? Or the man who says that everyone should be treated equally under the law and that our public universities should be oriented towards the pursuit of the true, the good, and the beautiful? I know who I'm with. I'm with the very wise and intelligent voters of this state. I'm with this man, Governor Ron DeSantis, and I'm with Richard Corcoran, the leader of New College. I'm with all of you, so thank you. Thanks to the great state of Florida. We have a lot of work to get done.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Governor. My name is Ivan Castro. I'm a Venezuelan immigrant, and that came to this blessed country in 1990. I just wish these people knew what a country on the left side will be. They probably won't be out there protesting right now. They'll probably be in jail. But as a Venezuelan immigrant that came here in 1990 with $1,200 in his pockets and a bag full of dreams, I'm here today. I'm here with my wife, Betty, my wife of 33 years. And we are the proud parents of 3 amazing daughters. My oldest one, Gabriela, 27 years old. And my second one is Daniela, who is 22 years old. And my third one, Jessica Maldonado, who has been with us since she was 13 years old and is now 21 years old. Thank you once again, Governor, for allowing us to be here. We are really honored and we're so grateful for the work that you have done in this, our beautiful state of Florida. And, you know, we came here from New Jersey to this blessed state in 2013 after receiving a calling to pastor a church in Oviedo called Refuge of God, Refugio de Dios. We are here today because Todo lo puedo en Cristo. I can do all things through Christ. And, and in a minute, I will explain to you what this means. As parents, my wife, Betty, and I were committed to incentivizing our children's academic pursuits and achievements. When we relocated to Florida, our eldest daughter, Gabriela, attended Haggerty High School in Oviedo, and through her dedication, volunteer work, she earned a Bright Future Scholarship to attend UCF. With her strong work ethic, academic excellence, and always putting God first, she scored well on her MCAT and was accepted to all 5 medical schools she applied for in different states. She ultimately chose to complete her medical education at UCF Medical School in Lake Nona, and is currently excelling in general surgery resident at Orlando Regional Medical Center. Similarly, our second daughter, Daniela, who just graduated from UCF with a degree of biomedical science, has aspirations of becoming a doctor of physical therapy. And our third daughter, who is currently in her 3rd year, majoring in biomedical science with a minor in journalism at UCF, is exploring her interests in varying fields. As a person of color who has traveled the world for work, I have never experienced discrimination in this country. In fact, my family and I have encouraged our children to focus on God first, their attitude, work ethic, and values as the most important factors in achieving success. Despite the false narrative propagated by some, we firmly believe that hard work and merit are the only true measures of success, and our daughters' accomplishments are evidence of that belief. As Hispanic women, my daughters are a testament to the endless opportunities available in this state when hard work, dedication, and perseverance are present. But as I mentioned to you before, I want to tell you what todo lo puedo en Cristo means. I can do all things through Christ. And I'd like to share with you an excerpt from one of my daughter's medical school essays. She said in that excerpt, todo lo puedo en Cristo. I can do all things through Christ. This is a phrase that my Venezuelan parents constantly reinforced in our home as I grew up. As a young girl, this meant I could achieve anything I put my mind to. It meant anything was possible through Christ. Growing up in this phrase developed an entirely new meaning in my life and eventually became the entire reason I'm pursuing medicine. Now, say it with me. Todo lo puedo en Cristo. I can do all things through Christ. I want to tell you today, don't believe the propaganda the media is pushing on you. We can accomplish anything in this country. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, where you are from, or your social status. With hard work and dedication, anything is possible. And if you trust God, nothing will be able to stop you. Governor, I prayed to God when I was preparing these few words. This is the first time in my life doing this, so I kind of feel like the new kid in the block. But I pray and I ask God to give me a word for you. And it says in the book that changed our lives, Proverbs 3, 5, 6. And I think you may be able to use this in the next few months coming. With all your heart, you must trust the Lord and not your own judgment. Always let him lead you, and he will clear the road for you to follow. I believe everything happens for a reason in our lives. Nothing happens by coincidence, but we know this. For those that love God, all things work together for good. Thank you so much, and God bless everyone. Thank you, Governor.
What a beautiful story. And again, Pastor, would you please pray for those people outside?
I am already.
Good morning, everyone. In 2021, the legislature unanimously passed the REACH Act, which was historic legislation to modernize Florida's workforce system. This was a workforce system that for too long was unaccountable to the people it served. June 24th, 2021, Governor DeSantis signed the REACH Act. This was at a time when most states were still on lockdown. Florida's governor was laser focused on getting Floridians back to work. The goal of the REACH Act was to increase collaboration between employers, education and training providers, and state agencies to ensure Floridians have the support they need to find purposeful work that will increase economic self-sufficiency. But as with any overhaul and in the spirit of continued collaboration, the legislation makes enhancements and refinements to the REACH Act. Senate Bill 240 will increase the state's efforts to expand work-based learning opportunities, including apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. It will make it easier for businesses to work with our schools, colleges, universities, and workforce boards. This legislative session, we have doubled down on the state's commitment to expand work and learn opportunities for Floridians from K-12 through the post-secondary level. I am honored to be part of what I affectionately refer to as Workforce 2.0. I want to thank Speaker Renner for the opportunity to run this legislation and Governor DeSantis for his continued commitment to the needs of Florida students and Florida's workforce system. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Richard, I hope that some of the money that we gave you, you can build some classrooms for your drama students outside. They need to have air conditioning and be inside. So, well, thank you for being here. Thank you, Governor. It's been a year. This is my 13th year in the legislature. I served 6 years in the Florida House, my 7th year. I have one more year. My sentence is almost up, and I'll be able to finish up there. So, but this has been a record year. And you know, passing policy is not easy. My wife here, thank you for being here with me, driving down. You know, she'll see something, she'll go, why don't you do that? And I say, well, we'll try it, but it's difficult. It's hard to do this. But this year, we did more public policy benefiting the state of Florida than any time in my career. And I give that a testament to our governor. But we also had record funding. And the funding, we give that money out, but that's not our money, that's your money. And the record funding, besides not only having record funding, we've also cut taxes at record amounts every single year, and we continue to do that this year. But that's a testament, again, Governor, for you opening up the state of Florida, encouraging people to come here to grow businesses, expand businesses. Without that, we would not have the record funding that we do. And the investment we have made in higher education, it's for you. The answers to the problems facing the nation, facing the state of Florida, we don't solve those in Tallahassee. These kids are going to solve the problems that face this nation, this state. And so thank you for you being here. Thank you again, Governor, for all of the work that you've done, opening up the state, the record funding, the great policies. Thank you. God bless.
Good morning. So one of the things that America's governor is fond of saying is that Florida is where woke goes to die. And I want you to, when you hear what's going on outside, that's what woke sounds like when it dies. The last gasp of a dying movement. Governor, it is great to be on the stage with you, but I will admit that I got a little bit starstruck when I saw Chris Rufo in the back, and I did get a selfie. And Chris, I've been reading your work for a long time, and I want you to know, and Speaker President Corcoran to know, you know the governor has your back. But with the $15 million appropriation, I want you to know that the most influential and most powerful branch of government, the Florida legislature, also has your back. We got your back. Folks, House Bill 931, which the governor is about to sign into law, is just the latest in a long history of legislation which signifies Florida's commitment to intellectual freedom and viewpoint diversity on college campuses. It started in 2018 with the Campus Free Expression Act. That was House Bill 423, which was authored and carried by then State Representative Ray Rodriguez, now your chancellor, and led by then Speaker of the Florida House, Richard Corcoran. So thank you for your early commitment there. 2019, we saw the Chicago Statement signed by 12 university presidents and our chancellor. 2021, I was privileged to work on a Viewpoint Diversity Act along with then State Senator Ray Rodriguez. And then in 2017, one thing I like to talk about is the National Survey of Student Engagement, which found that when asked about their commitment, their university's commitment to diversity in terms of race, sex, and disability, 74% of college students, 74% said their university did a great job when it came to diversity of race, sex, and disability. But when asked about political thought, that number dropped to almost 50%. And what that tells me and should tell you is that these universities for too long have placed a premium on people that look different but think the same. And that's not diversity, that's conformity, and that's what we're trying to change here. So House Bill 931, the goals are three things: to foster intellectual freedom by presenting alternative viewpoints to students so they can evaluate them for themselves. It's going to lead to a search for truth by putting the burden of the proponents of any viewpoint to put forward their best arguments and best evidence. And three, and most importantly, it's going to promote virtuous citizenship. It's going to teach students to weigh competing claims about the public good, debate those using the tools of debate instead of the tools of violence. What happened to Riley Gaines and what happened to Judge Kyle Duncan will never happen in the state of Florida. And thank you. This is a movement that started here in Florida. Florida leads. It's going to spread to the rest of the country. Governor, thank you so much for your leadership. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
All right, well, I think that those were great thoughts from all the speakers, and so we have a chance to make it official, so we'll get it done. Anyone that wants to come up, you guys come up and... All right. Still getting people up? Okay. All right. So the first one, SB 266, very important. The 14th or 15th? 15th. Who wants one of these? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Who is the bill sponsor for this? Huh? This one. Okay. All right. So there's one. Now we've got 931. Okay. All right. That's in the books. Okay, who wants one for 931? Okay. Anybody else? You get one? Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? All right. The next four are going to the peanut gallery, so be ready to catch.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
This is SB 240. Really important. Did you want one?
Yes,
please. Okay. I'll do 3 for the peanut gallery. Okay, so that's official. So there's one for you. Okay. Hey!
Rob. Hey. Well done. Well done.
lot of great work right here. You guys should be proud of the legislature for turning it out. Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
That's right.
Well, thanks, everybody. I think this is really, really meaningful, and we promised a lot, and we've delivered a lot, and we've got great more stuff to come. Okay, anyone back there?
Governor, you said during an event in Iowa over the weekend that the GOP needs to reject a culture of losing. Do you acknowledge that Trump lost and there wasn't all this laws that he talks about?
Well, I look at the last however many election cycles. 2018, we lost the House, we lost the Senate. 2020, Biden becomes president, or no, excuse me, we lost the Senate in 2020. Biden becomes president and has done a huge amount of damage. Very unpopular in 2022, and we were supposed to have this big red wave, and other than like Florida and Iowa, I didn't see a red wave across this country. And so I think the party has developed a culture of losing. I think that there's not accountability, and I think in Florida we really showed what it takes to not just win big, and then deliver big. And ultimately, when you're doing all this, what results are you producing for people? That's really what matters. You can sit there and talk about cable news, social media, all these other things that people are fixated on. And for me, it's like, okay, what's that true north? You obviously got to win, otherwise you don't get a ticket to the dance. But once you do that, how are you going to be able to actually bring about big change to make people's lives better? Next, yes.
Is your political operation in Tallahassee moving at pace today, and can we expect the announcement of your run in the next 15 days?
So we have different stuff, as you know. We've had a lot of folks. I mean, when I became governor, I basically disbanded the entire political operation. We just did that stuff, which was fine, and we did a lot of good stuff. But as the attacks have ramped up, we've had to create some cover for us, not only in our office, but out there. So there's a variety of things that go into that. And, all I will say is I promised we would deliver big. We have. Obviously, we've got a couple more things left on the agenda. I'm going to sign the budget soon. I don't think I'm going to veto the new college money, but But you may see some vetoes somewhere else. I think the legislature, by and large, did a good job. I think people remember last year, we vetoed about 3% of the overall budget, which was a record by far. And I don't anticipate that being necessary this year, but we'll see. Any more? Yes, ma'am? So Florida law is that you have to be here legally to be able to be employed. That's been the law for forever. And so when we have something like an E-Verify, that's a tool to make sure that longstanding Florida law is enforced. And I think that that's important. You can't build a strong economy based on illegality. And I think if you look what's happening at our southern border, part of the reason that's happening, yes, primarily because of Biden and his recklessness of opening the border and causing a lot of damage with the drugs that are pouring across, the fentanyl, tens of thousands of people dying. You have criminal aliens coming into our country. You have people on the terrorist watch list coming into our country. It's a total disaster. Part of the reason, though, you're seeing those numbers is because people feel that there are carrots to be able to come, that the U.S. isn't going to enforce its laws, that states aren't going to enforce its laws. And I think if you want a secure border, yes, I've said, let's build the wall. I will send my guys that built the Pine Island Bridge to the southern border to build a wall. I'll do that. I think it's important. We'll do that. And there's other things that need to be done, but part of the idea is, I think, what people have found is, and there's people coming from all around the world going through that Mexican-U.S. border. What they've basically been told is, if you come illegally, you're going to get like a piece of paper to come to a court date 3 or 4 years into the future, so then just go into the interior of our country. How is that serving as a deterrent? And so I think in the state of Florida, our laws have been longstanding. They are what they are, and I think that when you're living by that and enforcing that, I think we're stronger as a result. Okay, one more? Yes, sir? No, right here, this guy right here. Yep. Not yet. We go through kind of a process, and I've got to try to hear from stakeholders. We see who, the applications, and then we make decisions. Because of the legislative session, that had been our priority, making sure all that's gotten, and then now we're processing the budget. So we've kind of put that ahead of some of the decisions on appointments, but some of these decisions on appointments are relatively imminent, and they're not going to take too much longer. Thank you, everybody. God bless. Appreciate it.